Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Asha Bhavani, working as a assistant professor in CSE and ML department. So now I'm discussing some topics on OOPS through Java concepts. So under this, I'm discussing about classes, objects, and methods. So what are the key points which I'm going to discuss in this session are, we'll discuss about the class along with some examples. And I'll explain about objects, how to use an object inside the class. And we also demonstrate the different ways of using methods inside a Java program, along with some example programs on classes, objects, and methods. Next, so basically the entire Java program will write in terms of classes and objects only, right? So these classes, objects, these are comes under the OOPS concepts. So under this, basically these OOPS concepts are used to represent real world concepts and their identities. For example, to develop some web-based applications or desktop applications or some mobile-based applications, we use these OOPS concepts, right? Under this, first we'll discuss about class. What is class? A class is a template or a blueprint, or it is a logical entity which is used to share some common properties, right? For example, if you take an example of a student is a class. Student is a class. Class name, if I consider student is the class name. So what are the common properties of every student? So a student must have his or her roll number, and a student must have name and the course which he is studying, the course name, and student should have address, email ID, phone number, and so on. All these are the basic properties of a student. So if you have taken every individual student, if you have 100 students or 60 students in the class, student 1 to student 60, every student should have all these properties. So these all are the common properties which is shared by a single class, right? So, and next, whenever we declare a class, we cannot allocate a memory. Whenever class is declared, memory is not allocated. So next, and inside the class we have variables and methods. Inside the class, what we write? We'll write the variables and methods. So we call, if I told here that these all are the properties of a student, right? These all are the properties of a student. So these properties only, we can also say it as variables in programming language. These properties we can say it as variables in programming language. And one more point is, classes, memory is not allocated for the class at the time of declaration. So how can we access the variables and methods which are present inside the class? So that we can give answer for that through an object. So when we discussed about object, we'll see this point. Now we'll see the syntax of a class. What is the syntax of a class? So to declare any class, first we use access modifier, then the class keyword, after that class name. Inside of this class, basically we can have variables and methods. Variables and methods. Along with these variables and methods, we can also write constructors, we can also write inner classes, we can also write interfaces, right? So next, the example for class is here access modifier. Access modifier, I told you, the access modifier here which I used is public. So we have different types of access modifiers. We know that public, private, protected, and default. So regarding whenever we discussed about access modifier, we'll discuss in detail about that. So but here access modifier is nothing but it provides the visibility of the class to the other classes which are present in the same class or other packages, right? So After access modifier, we'll write the class keyword. Here I have taken the class name as student. So as I told you previously, so student might have the properties which are roll number, age, name, address. These all are the variables which we can declare for a student class. After that, methods. As I told you that inside the class we can have a methods. No, methods are nothing but what? Actions performed. Actions. What are the actions done by the student? A student can read, a student can write, a student can analyze, right, or think. So these are the different actions a student can perform. Every action we can treat it as a single method, right? Here, for example, here I have mentioned a read method, right? So inside the read method, I have written system.out.println student can read. So in this, totally, these are the variables. These two are the variables. This is a method. So this is variable and this is what? Method. So inside the class, what I have declared? Variables and methods. Variables and methods of whom? Student class, right? So to access these variables and methods, we should use object. Without object, we cannot use this variables and methods, right? When we use or when we access these variables and methods, then only we can perform certain action. So directly we cannot access this. So that's why next we'll move to the concept called object. So what is an object? An object is an instance of a class. It is an instance of a class and it is a physical entity. Where class is a logical entity, object is a physical entity, right? So if a student is physically existed, right? So but the parameters of the students, we can call it as a class. So all those parameters are inbuilt physically, that we consider as a object. So that's why we can say that object is an instance of a class. Or in a simple manner, we can also say it as an object is a physical entity. So what attributes an object can contain? So an object can have its state, object can have its behavior, object can have its own identity, every object, right? So what is the state? What type of state an object should have? The first one is it represents the properties or attributes of an object. So object, to access the student roll number, to access the student name, to access the student address, definitely we should need the object. So this object represents the state of a class. So what are those? What they have mentioned in that state? They have mentioned properties and attributes. Behavior. So definitely the object should have behavior. What type of behaviors? Behavior is nothing but methods of an object. Like student reading, writing, these all are the behaviors of a student, which we can call it as a methods. Next, identity. Every object should is having a unique name, which and it enables one object to interact with the other object. We can create multiple objects for a single class. One object can interact with the other object, right? And every object has unique address. And whenever we declare we create the object for the class, at the time of creation of an object, a memory is allocated. But for the class, memory is not allocated at the time of declaration. But for object, memory is allocated at the time of declaration of an object, or at the time of instantiation of an object, memory is allocated, right? So in this memory only, we'll store the variables and methods of a class. That's why we say that an object is an instance of a class. Next, and how can we instantiate an object? How can we instantiation of a class? Through a new keyword. How can we create an object? With the help of a new keyword, right? Previously, I have taken the C. This was the syntax of a object. How can we create the object? With the help of a class name, space, we'll use the one reference variable is equal to new keyword, space, class name followed by parenthesis. Next, previously we have taken the class student, right? For this student, how I have created student space, student is the class name, space, this is the reference variable, is S is equal to new is the keyword, space followed by a class name, opening and closing parenthesis, end with the semicolon. This is the creation of an object. Alright. So see here, if now we'll see an example program on class and object. So here, if you see here, public class student, I have created a student class. Inside the student class, I have written some variables which are roll number, name, address, age. These four are the properties of a class student, or we can also say it as a simply variables, right? Next, I have written a method. Here I have written a method. Here in this class we have two methods. One is read method, the other one is main method. Main method is compulsory in a class. So because main method, through main method only, JVM can enter into the Java program to execute. Okay, so definitely main method is compulsory. Here one more method I have written, which is a read method. Okay, so in this read method I just printed Ram is preparing for Java exam. Inside of this main method, see here, inside the main method only we should create the object. So this is the line of creation of an object. Creation of an object. So what is this object? Student. S is equal to new student, right? With this reference variable S only, we are accessing the name of a student, age of a student, as well as the methods. So through object only we can access variables and methods of a class. Without object, we cannot access the variables and methods of a class, right? So here, this is S. What is S here? S is the reference variable. Inside of this reference variable, what has stored? Object, student object has stored inside of this reference variable. New student is the object of the student class. This object of the student class stored inside this reference variable. With this reference variable only, we are invoking the variables of a student class as well as methods of a student class. Clear? So next, this is about object. So object is an instance of a class. At the time of declaration of an object, a memory is allocated. Through object only, we can access variables and methods of a class, right? Next, what is a method? A method is a block of code to perform some specific task. So whatever the task that we need to perform through that Java program, that entire task will write inside the method only. Whatever the actions to be taken while executing the Java program, so that action related code we write inside the method in a simple manner. So in what is the basic syntax of a method? So for methods also we use access modifiers. After that we can mention the return type. Thereafter, if you want, you can mention the data type, return type. So here, thereafter method name, right? If there is no return type or data type, same thing here. So if there is no if you are not mentioning any data type here, in place of return type you should keep a return type called void, right? Or else if I want to return some integer value, I want to return some double value or a string value, so in place of this return type I can mention here int double the corresponding value, the corresponding output, what you are going to return, that type of data type only you need to mention here. For example, if I want to return int value, so I should choose the int as a return type. If I want to return a double value like 10.5, 10.8, in that case you should use the double return type. If I want to return a float value, so I should use the float as a return type. Or else if I want to use a string value, I want to return some return output as some a group of characters like name, so in that case you should use the return type called string return type we can use. Or if you don't want to return any type of value, in that case you should go for choosing the void as the return type. So that's what I have given, the same information I have written in the note. Next, in how many types of methods we can have. So we have a predefined methods as well as user defined methods. In the name itself we can understand that what is predefined and user defined. Predefined is nothing but predefined methods are the methods that is already defined in Java class library. So the Java developers, they themselves has built a methods, some predefined methods, and which are available in the Java class libraries. For example, sqrt is one of the predefined methods. We can directly access that method and perform the corresponding task. Equals method, to compare two strings, we use this equals method. Right? These are the predefined methods. So next, user defined. Not only the predefined methods, as a programmer, you can also create your own methods. In the previous example, we might have seen that here, void read, this is a user defined method. The person who has written this program has written this method name. So these are the user defined methods. So the methods which are written by the user or a programmer is known as user defined methods, right? So there are different ways of defining a methods. So totally I have categorized into 4 cases. In that first case we'll see here. The first case is what? No return, no parameter. That means a method cannot return any value and it does not, and I couldn't pass any parameter. Like how this method should be, see here, public void add. Here no return type. If I'm not returning any value, what I told you that you should keep the void as a return type. And here, am I passing any parameters here? No, I'm not passing any parameters. So that's why the condition here it is no return, no parameter. And that if you see this simple logic here I have taken 2 variables inside the method and I just perform the addition operation. So here if you observe student S is equal to new student. So here the continuation of this is, so here some lines are missing. I'm writing now s dot add. So any Java program, the JVM will start executing from the main method. When I run this program after compilation, after compile successfully, when I run this program, the starting point for the execution of this Java program is from main method. So which inside this main method, the control enters, and the first line is object creation. I have created a student class object. This object is stored in the reference variable, right? So with this object reference variable only, I should invoke the methods and variables of this student class, right? So what is the method I have? S dot add. So next here I'll write s dot add of add. If I invoke this add method with the help of a object, then the control will move to the, it will check, the JVM will check add method is present in this student class or not. It will check, yes, it present, add method is present. It will execute the code which has written inside of this method, and under this system.out.println addition is C. Inside the C we have 30. Next case is return type no parameter. Here the method should have return type but with no parameter. So here if you observe this method, you can understand this is the return type, but this method does not have any parameter. Right, this is the way of declaring the method. Next, case 3. In this case, a method should have a return type as well as we are also passing the parameters. So if you observe this method, a method is having int as return type, and here 2 parameters I'm passing, a, b are the 2 parameters. So when I return the return type, even in the previous program also, I have the return type is int. So I should return what value? Integer value. C is an integer value. So I'm returning the integer value. Whenever we have taken the return type, so we must return the value from that method. Similarly here, passing 2 parameters and int as the return type. So the result also should be of int type. This is one rule you need to remember. Next, case 4, no return type, but passing the parameters. See here, void. If I'm not writing any return type, then I should mention here void, and I'm passing 2 parameters, int a comma b. Right? So these are the 4 ways of using methods. Thank you so much.